And welcome back to Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha along with my co-host Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and Brad Hirschfield. Let's continue our conversation around the tragedy in Charleston, and specifically around the racial aspect of this and mental illness. You brought up the point before that whenever there is a white man, or in this case, white young adult involved, we look to see what pills they may have been taking when that's not afforded perhaps to other races or other cultures.
It struck me as we were coming into the studio, I saw a headline that was discussing what pills this guy's on. So, you know, the implication being, well, he was mentally ill, and I'm sure he is. But, you know, I often wonder when I see this, well, how come when a black kid murders somebody or a Muslim kid murders somebody, even mass murders, I never see a headline saying what pills they were taking. You know, it's almost like, I have to say it, we're looking to find an excuse to explain the white kid's behavior.
Right. I don't think it's an excuse. What I think we're looking for is an easy, low-hanging fruit that we can pluck and say, now we understand the evil.
Why don't we do it for everybody?
We do. The truth is, when the hatchet murderer went on a tirade here in New York City and went through the subway, there was no ideological reason. They went right to mental illness. When people invoke a particular religious or political tradition and shout it from the rooftops, we go there.
But he did.
Clearly, no.
Yes, he did.
As soon as we found that out, Rick, we did go to that. No one knew that.
What we
knew initially was...
You're misstating the facts. We found this out last night, or certainly early this morning. The headline on what pills he's taking for his mental illness is tonight. So it's not that we changed
this. Because again, that's different. You said, why do we
but
never do it? The issue with the pills came up before, and Heather mentioned it, is the extent to which focusing on the mental health status of shooters would actually be an effective tool in combating these shootings.
Right, that's all,
and that's true.
Well,
yeah, but Rick, here's what I think it is. I think it's about prevention. So when we're focusing on the people, like you talked about the two who were arrested for terrorism, we're talking about how do we prevent that? How do we prevent these people being radicalized? No, how do we prevent them being radicalized? This kid does not appear to have been radicalized. He appears to have a mental health problem. So I think the terrorists were radicalized.
No, either you're missing my point or I have to state it better. Wait a second. Yes, I agree. Terrorists are indeed radicalized. Right. I think we all agreed just a few minutes ago that this kid was a terrorist. He was in there on a political mission. So I don't get your point.
There's no
Why are we talking about his mental illness and not the others?
Because we're looking for the prevention. We're talking about gun control and how we don't think that is the answer.
Everybody?
But the answer for him looks to be getting a better mental health program. That will help them too.
I completely
hear that. But the answer for the terrorists...
How do you know that might not have been the answer for some black kid who was a mass murderer or a Muslim mass murderer?
You don't see very many black mass murderers.
Well,
that is not...
The last couple of shootings, Columbine, young white kids.
They were
scary because they all kind of looked alike. You know, the Columbine,
used Muslims.
Aurora, Virginia Tech.
How do you know that they're not crazy and on meds?
Well, again, let's be careful, because crazy versus mentally ill are two different things.
How do you know they're not mentally ill and on meds? Just like we went to that with this guy.
First of all, in the investigations, they do explore it. But you go to the first proximate cause. When someone has a coherent, if perverse, ideology that motivates their mass murder, that's the first place you go.
You did.
And no, he didn't have a coherent ideology.
If he had said, go KKK, then we would be talking about how to deal with that. No, he did not. He didn't point to a group. He pointed to his beliefs.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. He said, you people are trying to take over my country. I'm tired of it. You know, you're raping our women. Now, how is, I mean, it may be different words than KKK, but you can't argue it's not the same exact thing.
It's going back to an idea as opposed to a group. Listen, I'm not saying that you're not correct, but when these terrorists are talking about they've been radicalized by a group, so we're looking for prevention. How do we stop the radicalization?
I take your point, but you're missing mine. I take your point, I really do. But what I'm trying to say is, this kid did something very similar. Maybe it wasn't a group, although it was. He was talking about all black people hurting all white people, so that's pretty much of a group. But already tonight in the paper, they're talking about the pills he was taking for mental illness. All I'm saying, you're saying that they investigate that too with Muslim terrorists. Why does it never make the newspaper? And yet here it's a headline.
We're going to go
because typically the ones who do it as groups are not mentally ill. They're coherent but twisted.
I'm sorry, how do you know that?
Because we know from people we
convict.
No,
we don't know that.
Rick,
we're going in circles here, guys.
We're
going to go in circles.
Know that.
Heather, I'm going to anoint you the social media director of this program because you see Twitter's blowing up on somebody blaming Fox News for all of this.
Yes, it was. Now I've got to make sure that I have my facts right.
It was on Jake Tapper's show on CNN. It was a legislator, the House Minority Leader, not the general House Minority Leader, but of South Carolina, make it very clear, J. Todd Rutherford.
Right.
What did he say exactly?
He was talking about a number of different things. He talked about South Carolina being one of 5 states that does not have a hate crime law, which is correct. He talked about the fact that the Confederate flag is still flown there, which is correct and is a problem. And then he talks about the fact that this kid was watching television and said, and this is a quote, he hears that because he watches the news and he watches things like Fox News, where they talk about things that they call news, but they're really not. They use that coded language, they use hate speech, they talk about the president as if he's not the president, they talk about churchgoers as if they're not really churchgoers, and that's what this young man acted on.
Well, he didn't just blame. I actually thought that he came out and blamed Fox News. He blamed a whole lot of things there.
But
Fox News.
But what's going to
Fox
stand out
News.
there, Rick, is that he took a major
Fox
media organization.
Fox will make sure it stands out, and he shouldn't. It was ridiculous that he said that.
But
it's
it's
not quite as
just-
bad as it
Do
originally
you think
sounded.
any of those things that he mentioned,
The
even
worst part
taken
is he's a
collectively, led
Democrat,
to
I'm
this?
sure.
That's the real question. Do you think even collectively, all 3 of those, the absence
No,
of
of
a hate
course
crime,
not.
right?
No.
That's
I mean,
the
yeah,
thing.
I'm not
It's-
defending
it's
the
just
guy.
irresponsible.
But
It's
no,
just,
it's
you
more.
know.
It's worse than irresponsible because it perpetuates the hate. Because now we're talking about, oh, this is Fox News' fault that this started,
There's someone
and now
to blame,
you
'cause that's,
exactly.
again, everyone wants to
Yeah,
find.
but we're,
Who can I
but we're
blame
the
at
ones
this
doing
moment?
it, because what we should probably be saying is among his list of blames was Fox News
I
and
just read
this.
the whole
No,
thing.
I understand that. You did. But what I hear everybody out there talking about is the guy blamed Fox News. Well, he did. But he also blamed this. And he
Because
blamed
that's the
this, and he
biggest
blamed
entity
this.
within that
That's
sentence.
because it's
So
gonna get the
that's
biggest
going to stand
headline.
out.
Yes, and because
Right.
blame
You know?
begets blame. So people who watch Fox are upset at him and they want to blame him back, and it gets narrower and narrower until
Yeah.
we can't do anything
This is
smart.
a government
And this is the
official.
problem.
This is somebody who represents
He's a
South
moron.
Carolina.
He's a moron.
And he's a moron. And again, these
And the
people
worst
haven't
part
even
is
been
I
dead
think
for
he's-
24 hours.
He's
It's
probably,
sad.
he's
I mean,
probably
that's-
a
We gotta
Democrat.
go.
That's
We
the
gotta
worst
go.
part.
We
It's
gotta
sad.
go. Pope weighs in on global warming. What did he have to say? Stay tuned.